country came together as I've never seen it come together since World War II. But some of that seems to have melted away. I think it's fair to say we've become pretty polarized, perhaps because of the political season. But if you were elected president, or whoever is elected president, will you set a priority in trying to bring the nation back together? Or what would be your attitude on that?
Well, very much so. Let me pay a compliment to the president, if I may. I think in those days after 9/11, I thought the president did a terrific job. And I really was moved, as well as impressed, by the speech that he gave to the Congress. And I think the hug Tom Daschle gave him at that moment was about as genuine a sense of there being no Democrats, no Republicans. We were all just Americans. That's where we were. That's not where we are today. I regret to say that the president, who called himself a uniter, not a divider, is now presiding over the most divided America in the recent memory of our country. I've never seen such ideological squabbles in the Congress of the United States. I've never seen members of a party locked out of meetings the way they're locked out today. We have to change that. And as president, I am committed to changing that. You know, I don't care if the idea comes from the other side or this side. I think we have to come together and work to change it. And I've done that. Over 20 years in the United States Senate, I've worked with John McCain, who's sitting here. I've worked with other colleagues. I've reached across the aisle. I've tried to find the common ground, because that's what makes us strong as Americans. And if Americans trust me with the presidency, I can pledge to you, we will have the most significant effort, openly, not secret meetings in the White House with special interests, not ideologically driven efforts to push people aside, but a genuine effort to try to restore America's hope and possibilities by bringing people together. And one of the ways we're going to do it is I'm going to work with my friend John McCain to further campaign finance reform so we get these incredible amounts of money out of the system and open it up to average people, so America is really represented by the people who make up America.
Mr. President?
My biggest disappointment in Washington is how partisan the town is. I had a record of working with Republicans and Democrats as the governor of Texas, and I was hopeful to be able to do the same thing, and we made good progress early on. The No Child Left Behind Act, incredibly enough, was good work between me and my administration and people like Senator Ted Kennedy. And we worked together with Democrats to relieve the tax burden on the middle class and all who pay taxes in order to make sure this economy continues to grow. But Washington is a tough town, and the way I view it is there's a lot of entrenched special interests there. People who are, on one side of the issue or another, and they spend enormous sums of money, and they convince different senators to tout their way, or different congressmen to talk about their issue, and they dig in. I'll continue in the 4 years to continue to try to work to do so. But my opponent said this is a bitterly divided time. Pretty divided in the 2000 election. So in other words, it's pretty divided during the 1990s as well. We're just in a period, and we've got to work to bring it up. My opponent keeps mentioning John McCain, and I'm glad he did. John McCain is for me for president because he understands I have the right view in winning the war on terror, and that my plan will succeed in Iraq, and my opponent has got a plan of retreat and defeat in Iraq.
We've come, gentlemen, to our last question. And it occurred to me as I came to this debate tonight that the three of us share something. All three of us are surrounded by very strong women.
That's right.
We're all married to strong women. Each of us have two daughters that make us very proud. I'd like to ask each of you, what is the most important thing you've learned from these strong women?
To listen to them. To stand up straight and not scowl. I love the strong women around me. I can't tell you how much I love my wife and our daughters. I am, it's really interesting. I tell the people on the campaign trail, when I asked Laura to marry me, she said, fine, just so long as I never have to give a speech. I said, okay, you got a deal. Fortunately, she didn't hold me to that deal. And she's out campaigning along with our girls, and she speaks English a lot better than I do. I think people understand what she's saying. But they see a compassionate, strong, great First Lady in Laura Bush. I can't tell you how lucky I am when I met her in the backyard of Joe and Jan O'Neill in Midland, Texas. It's the classic backyard barbecue. O'Neill said, "Come on over. I think you'll find somebody who might interest you." So I said, "All right," bopped over there. There's only 4 of us there, and not only did she interest me, I guess you could say it was love at first sight.
Senator Kerry.
Well, I guess the President and you and I are 3 examples of lucky people who married up. Right. And some would say maybe me more so than others. But I can take it. Can I say, if I could just say a word about a woman that you didn't ask about, but my mom passed away a couple years ago, and just before I was deciding to run, and she was in the hospital, and I went in to talk to her and tell her what I was thinking of doing. And she looked at me from her hospital bed, and she just looked at me and she said, "Remember, integrity, integrity, integrity." Those are the 3 words that she left me with. And my daughters and my wife are people who just are filled with that sense of what's right, what's wrong. They also kick me around. They keep me honest. They don't let me get away with anything. I can sometimes take myself too seriously. They surely don't let me do that. And I'm blessed, as I think the President is blessed. As I said last time, I've watched him with the First Lady, who I admire a great deal, and his daughters. He's a great father, and I think we're both very lucky.
Well, gentlemen, that brings us to the closing statements. Senator Kerry, I believe you're first.
My fellow Americans, as you heard from Bob Schieffer a moment ago, America is being tested by division more than ever. We need to be united as a country. And like Franklin Roosevelt, I don't care whether an idea is a Republican idea or a Democrat idea. I just care whether it works for America and whether it's going to make us stronger. These are dangerous times. I believe I offer tested, strong leadership that can calm the waters of a troubled world. And I believe that we can together do things that are within the grasp of Americans. We can lift our schools up. We can create jobs that pay more than the jobs we're losing overseas. We can have health care for all Americans. We can further the cause of equality in our nation. Let me just make it clear. I will never allow any country to have a veto over our security. Just as I fought for our country as a young man with the same passion, I will fight to defend this nation that I love. And with faith in God and with conviction in the mission of America, I believe that we can reach higher. I believe we can do better. I think the greatest possibilities of our country, our dreams and our hopes, are out there just waiting for us to grab onto them. And I ask you to embark on that journey with me. I ask you for your trust. I ask you for your help. I ask you to allow me the privilege of leading this great nation of ours, of helping us to be stronger here at home and to be respected again in the world, and most of all, to be safer forever. Thank you, good night, and God bless the United States of America.
Mr. President.
In the Oval Office, there's a painting by a friend of Laura and mine named by Tom Lee. And it's a West Texas painting of a mountain scene, and he said this about it. He said, "Sarah and I live on the east side of the mountains, the sunrise side, not the sunset side. It's the side to see the day that is coming, not to see the day that is gone." I love the optimism in that painting because that's how I feel about America. And we've been through a lot together during the last 3 3/4 years. We've come through a recession, a stock market decline, an attack on our country. And yet, because of the hard work of the American people and good policies, this economy is growing. Over the next 4 years, we'll make sure the economy continues to grow. We reformed our school system, and now there's an achievement gap in America that's beginning to close. Over the next 4 years, we'll continue to insist on excellence in every classroom in America so that our children have a chance to realize the great promise of America. Over the next 4 years, we'll continue to work to make sure health care is available and affordable. Over the next 4 years, we'll continue to rally the armies of compassion to help heal the hurt that exists in some of our country's neighborhoods. I'm optimistic that we'll win the war on terror, but I understand it requires firm resolve and clear purpose. We must never waver in the face of this enemy, these ideologues of hate. And as we pursue the enemy wherever it exists, we'll also spread freedom and liberty. We got great faith in the ability of liberty to transform societies, to convert a hostile world to a peaceful world. My hope for America is a prosperous America, a hopeful America, and a safer world. I want to thank you for listening tonight. I'm asking for your vote. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Kerry. Well, that brings these debates to a close, but the campaign goes on. I want to wish both of you the very best of luck between now and Election Day. That's it for us from Arizona State University in Tempe, Arizona. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News. Good night, everyone.
And so the final presidential candidates' joint appearance ends. This is the last of the three. The two men fielded 20 questions on domestic policy, Social Security, health care costs, immigration, and on some personal issues of faith and their own marriages. Senator Kerry said tonight that President Bush's proposal to possibly change Social Security laws is, quote, an invitation to disaster for Social Security. President Bush said that Senator Kerry's position to save Social Security is an offer of, quote, more of the same without specifics. Senator Kerry said 5 million people have lost their health care in the last 4 years, and he accused President Bush of turning his back on workable health care proposals. President Bush said Senator Kerry's plan to expand coverage was, quote, an empty promise and it would cost far too much. President Bush said his plans for creating jobs and improving the economy are working. Senator Kerry said President Bush is the first president in 72 years who has presided over net job losses during his presidency. Senator Kerry said President Bush had not kept his promise to be a uniter, not a divider. President Bush said that he had been a uniter. Now, tonight was the final debate, and it seems both men, John Kerry and George W. Bush, came to play it safe, to stick to message, maintain their composure, and to play mainly to their faithful, their core voters, what the politicians call trying to activate their base and make sure it stays faithful and gets out. Many people may reach the conclusion this was the least interesting of the three debates. We'll have to see on that. I want to remind you that we have a CBS quick poll which is now being tabulated, and we'll report that to you as we go along with our post-debate coverage. Let's go down to Arizona and CBS News correspondent Jim Axelrod. Jim, high point, low point of this joint appearance.
Well, Dan, I thought both men were in command of the facts, in command of their philosophies that support very different worldviews, particularly in areas like health care and in taxes, Social Security in particular, where the president was talking about the need to privatize part of the Social Security system, and Senator Kerry answered with, quote, that's an invitation to disaster. Dan, look, there were plenty of zingers tonight. Senator Kerry at one point said being lectured by President Bush on fiscal responsibility is like being lectured by Tony Soprano on Law and Order. President Bush also called Senator Kerry on the far left bank of American politics. Senator Kerry makes Senator Kennedy look like the conservative senator from Massachusetts. But this wasn't about one-liners. At the end of the day, this was about the critical impact on undecided voters. And because so much familiar ground was plowed, because this was more or less 90 minutes of greatest hits from both men's stump speeches, I'm not sure very much was done by way of moving undecideds. 13 days ago, when this debate process started, 20% of the voters were seen as uncommitted, either undecided in a traditional sense or committed but still could be moved. Coming into tonight, that number was 18%. And I'm not sure very much took place tonight that's going to nudge undecided voters or uncommitted voters even more. Dan?
Well, Jim Axelrod and John Roberts, our chief White House correspondent, who will be speaking to you in just a moment, want to note again that tonight CBS News is running a poll specifically among people who said they were uncommitted voters, and we will be reporting the results of that poll for you as we go along in this post-debate program. Now, John Roberts, high point and low point of the debate so far as you could see it here.
Well, Dan, certainly there were lots of highs and lots of lows, as Jim Axelrod just illuminated. This one's a really tough one to call in terms of who might have come out the winner. I would probably have to give it to John Kerry. He seemed a little bit more poised. Don't forget, he's got a lot more experience in this type of podium type of debate. But the two of them, as Jim said, were very conversant in the issues. I think what you saw up there tonight really was two people who could be presidents. There were two presidents up on the stage, and for undecided voters, I think really now it's just a matter of which one you like better. I mean, they both obviously have their own positions, different as they may be. They both have quite a comprehensive command of the facts. So really an undecided voter has to take a look at the measure of the man and say, who do I want to have coming into my living room for the next 4 years, and make up their mind that way. In terms of actually moving what happens in the next 2 weeks or so, as Jim said, probably not a whole lot to be had there. Probably won't even really move too much what happens in the next few days as they begin that flat-out 20-day run into November 2nd. Interesting to note, though, that in terms of the strategy tonight, they both tried to beat each other over the head with each other's respective records and tried to say that either one of them was misrepresenting the facts. President Bush when he talks about John Kerry when President Bush talks about him. I think that for me, one of the more interesting lines of the night came at the very end when President Bush was asked by our colleague Bob Schieffer, what have you learned from women? And he says, I've learned to listen to them. I've learned to stand up straight and not to scowl, which of course was a reference to his performance during the first debate. John Kerry pulled a strategy from John Edwards at the vice presidential debate when asked about homosexuality. He brought up Mary Cheney, Dick Cheney's daughter, who is a lesbian. That was something that a very senior Bush campaign official, when Edwards did it, said was smart but cheesy. Dan?
John Roberts, our chief White House correspondent here for CBS News. Now, with each of these face-off, we've invited spokesmen from both sides to come on this program and tell us why they believe their man won. We'll do that again tonight, beginning with the Democrats. Senator John Kerry will be here in a moment. And then after that, we hope to have Rudolph Giuliani speaking up for President Bush and his performance tonight. So stay here with us. We'll be right back.
We know that Senecot, with its natural vegetable laxative ingredient, has been hard to find. Well, your wait is over. Senecot, with the laxative ingredient proven to be effective in 50 clinical studies, now in stores everywhere.